Let's look at how we can apply being, doing, knowing in practice through clues. Clues work along a series of stepping stones in a unit planning process. The stepping stones are 1. Creative elements, 2. Creative enterprises, 3. Creative episodes. We use the idea of stepping stones to encourage hopping forwards and backwards along a planning pathway. Planning forward because inquiry is important, and planning backward because knowing the learning goals is similarly important. The first stepping stone highlights the creative elements of being, doing, knowing by identifying learning outcomes and potential interests and developing possible creations. The second stepping stone is about building these creative elements into possible creative enterprises and choosing one. The third stepping stone is about unpacking the chosen creative enterprise into a series of creative episodes. We start on the first stepping stone by collecting together two sets of information and developing a third. These are the three creative elements and correspond to being, doing, knowing. Firstly, intended learning outcomes, knowing what do you need them to know? And secondly, potential interests of those you are teaching, being who might they aspire to be, beyond just being a student. Some examples of potential interests could include being a sports player, being a movie maker, being an environmental campaigner. And these two elements support development of thirdly, bringing together learning outcomes and interests to suggest possible creations. Doing how? How do they create something that draws on what you need them to know and who they might aspire to be? Some examples of potential creations, building on the examples of potential interests just mentioned, could include a game, a movie, an environmental campaign. These examples, when described in more detail, connect interests and learning outcomes. We move to the second stepping stone by thinking creatively about how these three creative elements, the learning outcomes, the potential interests, and the possible creations, can be combined to generate a collection of possible creative enterprises. This collection is a list of possibilities. The most suitable creative enterprise must be chosen from amongst them and further developed as the creative enterprise for the unit. Some examples of creative enterprises, noting that these examples do not relate to the same planning process but build on the examples already presented, could include creating a sports game incorporating specific skills to be played in a team competition, creating an online video about how to learn algebra for mathematics learners around the world, creating an environmental campaign website for a local issue, inclusive of scientific and historical information. The chosen creative enterprise is then expanded by identifying a shared problem with a nod to inquiry and a shared performance product with a nod to backward design, both joined together by shared criteria. We emphasise the word shared as the aim is for everyone, teachers and learners, to be working purposefully together. This brings relationships to the forefront in planning the achievement of learning outcomes. Using the example of creating an online video on how to learn algebra for mathematics learners around the world, the shared performance product is the video on learning algebra. The shared problems include how to learn algebra and how to make a video. Then shared criteria will detail how this video on learning algebra is to be created. We move to the third stepping stone by dividing the creative enterprise into a series of unfolding creative episodes to give us a completed creative learning unit. Each clue will typically have 2 or 3 creative episodes. Using again the example of creating an online video about how to learn algebra for mathematics learners around the world, the first creative episode may involve building a storyboard for the video on learning algebra. The second creative episode may then involve using this storyboard to create the online video on learning algebra. Shared criteria are developed for each creative episode and can be used by everyone to track progress and provide feedback to each other. This means that the teacher is not the only one giving quality feedback. Everyone can, as individuals or in groups. This supports learning, helps inspire creativity, and raises the bar much higher for quality. Clues are both fun and serious at the same time. Clues are both fun and serious because they take learning outcomes and make them necessary to achievement of a creative enterprise, which expresses being someone they aspire to be. Clues are both fun and serious because they define shared criteria for success, involving learners in establishing goals and working together to provide feedback to inspire quality outcomes and results. Clues are both fun and serious because they are purposeful in a shared way.